You guys, you do have a unique position, perspective, whatever, to be able to talk to a lot of different companies that are doing a lot of different things. And I talked just here recently, was it 2 or 3 roundups ago? We took that picture.
Oh yeah.
And I posted. This is what partnerships look like. Because
yes,
it was Stacy
cool.
and it was John Burns and it was Brian Adler and us and you kind of touched on it a minute ago. We've in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a big transformation on partnerships and how things fit together and how you can work together. And I think there's a big message there. I think I said something to Sean when he was at our conference about, I think there's a big message that you guys kind of are this centerpiece and you have a lot of information on companies, not just banks, but on companies and how those companies could possibly work together.
This is important. I'm so glad you brought this up. I mean, when people ask, what do you do, or what is Bankers Helping Bankers? I mean, it's an ecosystem of itself.
It is.
It is.
And but you're right. I'd like to tell people I think we're probably the most strategic relationship you'll ever have, and you'll never know. And that's really the key to all of this is because we understand. I think there's companies that they have their pitch and go, oh, they do this or they do that. But do you really get what they do? Like somebody that works there gets it?
Oh, yeah.
And when you do, across the industry with so much of it, it's pretty easy to go, well, gosh, there's the lime and there's the coconut, put them together and shake it up.
Well, I think importantly to figure out who the good people are. I'm not
yeah.
always going to choose the greatest product. I'd rather have the greatest people.
Exactly.
Exactly. Sarah asked me on the way out here, she said, how did you meet the Mayos?
Yeah.
And it was you, Stacy Zuniga, introduced you and I.
Yep.
And it's those kind of people that you've done business with, that you want to continue to do business with, that you kind of end up attracting that group of people.
The other thing that always struck me in that picture you're talking about is not just that, like, it's not us that's the hub of all those partners, or even you that's the hub.
Absolutely.
Maybe y'all are the integration hub, but they're all partners with each other as well.
Absolutely.
And we all do our own thing, and we
Yeah.
all do our stuff
That's
together.
so
Yeah.
cool. I've
It
always
is so
thought
cool.
when you look at like partners that are partners of other partners, and everybody's all partners and friends working
Yeah.
together. How
Yeah.
else are you supposed to get 3 or 4 parties to work together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Well, this is the positive side. Let's talk about the negative side.
Yeah.
So I partner with you. Well, he did something to somebody years ago, and their companies don't like each other.
Right.
And now my partner over here and my partner over here are both looking at me going, dude, right?
Yes.
So you pick up the baggage of your partners.
Yep.
And people have to be mature enough in their understanding of the relationship
Absolutely.
to be able to go, look, there's going to be a little, we still have to be able to run our race. You still
Yep.
have to be able to run your race.
Exactly.
And I can't be pissed off at everything that you do that isn't in my favor.
Right.
Or you do something with a competitor or whatever. And I think there's a little bit of a fundamental misunderstanding in our business of how to do a partnership. And particularly when you're looking at so many of these companies that are funded companies, and they got a burn rate, and they've got, sometimes it's an aggressive move that they're trying to make, or sometimes it's a stretch a dollar move that they're trying to make, and you interfere with that in any way, and it's like, boy, that's a sensitive subject.
Because the
Well, they
greatest
can't-
commodity is
it makes
often
it more
patience.
difficult to work with them.
Have you ever seen that?
The-
The opportunity to be patient and not have financial or goals or board restrictions of why I got to race down and do something. The ability to be patient. I mean, look, you could give us, all of us sitting here, something impossible and we could do it in 2 years. But with a fortune, we can do it in 1.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of this funding cycle, I kind of think for a long time was a really bad thing because it forced everybody to be overly aggressive, overpromise, underdeliver, right? Whereas if everybody could have been afforded patience, they make better
Or
partners.
they
for everybody.
walk through partners and just leave footprints on their
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too, is everybody has to be mature enough to know that this may not be a fit for DCI,
Right.
but it's a fit for somebody else. But that doesn't mean the next deal isn't a fit for DCI. I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, we're honest with people and say this may not be a fit for us.
That's where y'all got that integrity.
Yeah.
We're also
Makes
very
sense.
honest on where we stay in our lane.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about this all the time. We're going to stay in our lane. We know what our lane is, and we know where you're going to have to integrate with somebody else. And if we can be honest with you about that, can't we, move ahead together?
Right.
We are all about the continuation of the community bank, okay? We've all made that very, very clear. But I'll give you an example. Tanner introduced me to Brian Adler. We end up buying Brian Adler's product. Brian Adler goes and does another deal that he's now sold to a sponsor bank that we're processing. It's this thing of vendors coming together, having relationships, and in the end, it benefiting the community bank that we're all supporting. And I think that is a huge message that nobody's talking about. So we as vendors are doing different partnerships. And you're right, I don't have to have a quarterly goal that I have to meet on sales or finances or anything like that, like a Fiserv does. And I may not have some of the products that Fiserv has, but I'm agile and they're not. And so for somebody out there in this world doing fintech or banking or whatever, being agile is a benefit, okay? To somebody else, it's not. The security of a Fiserv is. I'm okay with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Fiserv may not be okay with that because of their requirements. But I think it's just that having that honest conversation and knowing that some of us are going to be in and some of us are going to be out. But I still feel like there's a whole group of us that come together because of you guys.
Yeah.
And we found each other kind of because we all believed in the same thing. I'll bet you, Dave, I've known you guys for 4 or 5 years. I'll bet you, Dave, in that time frame, you've had half of the vendor relationships that you've started in the last 5 years. I bet half of them you don't continue to have a relationship with. Now, that may be because they sold. That may be because they combined with somebody. But some of those are going to be because it wasn't a right fit for you. Sarah talks all the time about we do acquisitions based on if it fits us. We don't do them because, and we've passed on some because it would have affected our customer support to our customers. You guys are the same way. I'll bet you $10 if you guys looked back over the last 5 years. There's some that fell off just because they weren't a right, honest fit. Matter of fact, I could probably name one or two.
What's funny,
I will tell you a story right
it's
here.
whether or not they do bad by the bankers. You talk about
That's exactly right. That's
what
part
I
of
was
the due
gonna-
diligence.
That's what I was going to say. We have a
Understands-
line. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like family reunions.
Yeah.
You can't flirt with your cousins, right?
Right.
There's a bar. There's a line of behavior that has to be a standard, and we hold that because we feel like if you'll screw us over,
Right.
you'll screw over a banker.
Sure.
And so the partners that we want to introduce to you, or the partners that you want us, to vice versa, or like you say, we see a lot of companies and understand granularly what they do, and we can see good partnerships before they do.
Yeah.
But you got to be really careful because then they go out and do something damaging, and back to you carry their damaged
I
products.
actually
and
will say, you
relationship
guys had
with
that same line at DCI where
We do.
you're a much more important relationship for somebody than any one of your banks would be. And if they will do you dirty, then you will know that they're going to hurt your banks too.
And we're going to take the black eye for it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Our banks have blind faith in us, but at the same time, if we bring them a vendor that's not ethical, it comes back on us.
I'll tell you, I hear of things that a partner that I introduced somebody to that did something, and I mean, I'd walk out on the front porch and just smoke comes out of my ears.
Yep.
I mean, it's like, I
Yep.
can't really pick up the phone and yell at them, but at the same time, I talked to you, and we put this on, okay, we'll call it the watch list.
People get
Yeah.
Before
quietly
you get to the
blacklisted.
blacklist.
Yeah.
We actually
Same
have
thing.
a blacklist.
But we've made vendor changes not because there was a product issue.
Right.
We made vendor changes because there was a service issue and it was affecting
Usually
our
that's
customers.
it.
That's the main
Right?
issue.
Yeah. I mean, this game that we're all playing is just, there's landmines everywhere.
Yeah.
We all screw stuff up all the time.
Absolutely.
Of course.
It's a matter of whether or not there's good people that'll step in and fix it.
That's
and
right.
Make it right.
That's
Because
right.
issues happen, you know? I
They
mean,
do.
All the time. Yeah.
It's
a big
how you
difference.
react when they happen,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and how do you fix it going forward.
Yeah,
That's
I had
when-
one time that was a little bitty bank, like $80 million bank. It was a little bitty product, and they were doing a conversion, and I think it got bumpy because the staff at the bank wasn't really, put the wrong file in the wrong thingy, right? And they flew like an action team of 3 people down to the bank and hung out with them for like 3 days. And I knew when they did it, the bank didn't make it, they probably lose money on that bank, but they did it for our relationship
Yep.
to take care of the bank. And it's like you're saying,
And then they refer to the next person.
Hell, I've
Yeah.
driven 6
Oh, yeah.
hours in the middle of nowhere, hung out with you guys for an hour with a banker, turned around and drove another 6, got home at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
That commitment is not there with everyone.
It
Yep.
isn't.
And that, one of the things that we say in the sales process all the time is we are not perfect and we will make mistakes, but we'll be honest with you and we'll fix it. And that's who you want to do business with. You don't pick who you want to do business with based on when things are great. That's easy for all of us. It's when there's a problem.
Yep.
I like what you said, Tanner. It's kind of an internal thing that we talk about a lot, and we hardly ever talk about it externally, is that, and back to bankers helping bankers.
Yep.
If you'll screw us over, I guarantee you'll screw over a
yeah.
banker. And that is, we're too short in the game now to allow bankers to get hurt.
Yep.
And when guys will, I say guys, when companies will take it on the chin, like you said, for service, maybe it was the customer's fault and we don't care.
Yep,
We
it
still want to
doesn't
go
matter.
serve them. That expectation level that we can hold, that bar that we talked about. And then all of a sudden people begin to turn to us and go, okay, who should I partner with on this? We're easy to hand that partnership over because we trust somebody. And you're right, whether it's the BHB fund or whether it's whatever it may be. I don't know why all these companies end up talking to us. Maybe it's because of our data or one thing or another.
No, it's
actually
because of
a
your
whole bunch of different
reputation.
things. But eventually, yeah, you're right. Eventually, it's just like everybody
Yeah.
knows to call us.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me a while back, I don't know, we were either at after, it wasn't at after, but we were at a conference and we were talking about Fed Fizz and bankers helping bankers, because we let everybody know about those two things and tell all the bankers they need to be involved. And I had a vendor ask me why we were involved with Fed Fizz. And I said, for one reason and one reason only. If I'm looking for something or needing information or looking for something to interface to, you guys are the first people to call. And it always helps out the bankers that end up getting the information and bankers helping bankers. And
It's not just numbers.
It's not just numbers.
It isn't. It isn't. And
It's back to the relationship.
it is. It is.
Every time.
Every time.
But I don't think people sometimes understand that they have as much vendor information as they do bank information.
Yeah.
And actually understand it. This
Yeah.
is what we love
Yeah.
about working with you guys is we call you the MacGyver. You're the one that'll get in there and figure it out, work the problem, and get to the bottom of it. And I think there's a lot of people in our industry that are overwhelmed by the depth. I mean, it's like, hey, I think I'll learn payments today. And it's
They're
like,
searching
come
for
see
an
me in-
oversimplification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come see me in 15 years when you finally
Yeah.
understand payments, right?
Yeah.
And it takes years and years and years to understand regulatory and all the different parts and pieces of this. And by hook or crook, defaults, whatever, data, I don't know why. We just have a broad depth. And I think that really, really helps. And it really makes the relationship cool when we're talking with guys like you. They're like, yeah, you're depth people as well. And if you're not a core, you don't get exposure to all these things. You get you call them silos
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
information,
Yep.
and they're specialists, but they don't really get the whole banking industry.
Well, we have, and the industry is full of vertical solutions, but we have horizontal problems.
Problem.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it.
I always talk
That's a
about that
great
with,
way
for
of
us with
putting it.
data, it's like we're faced with horizontal problems, and data is kind of horizontal, right? It's like something where we can use to look at whatever we're trying to look at and solve
I
for.
think
So.
far too many
That's cool.
people they come up with a conclusion, then they look to data to fill that.
Yeah.
We did a survey and
Versus
found
the
that bird
other.
dogs like to hunt birds, and it's
Yeah.
like
Give me your
amazing.
answers.
But when you look
It's
at
humbling.
data and
Very.
ask it questions and try to see what it tells you, there's 100 times we've looked at this and our data must be messed up because that's wrong.
There's no way that's right.
Yeah, and it actually turns out that
Yeah.
we were dumbasses and the
Yeah.
data was right. And it makes you stop in a dime and go,
It
wait a
does.
minute.
It's one of the reasons that we've had such a great relationship with Plot Marketing. When I will never forget one of the very first meetings we had with them. Jason Yoder, the owner, is like, "You guys have all the data and you're not using any of it to sell,
Cool.
and to market." And so that has been huge for us.
That's cool.
You also listen to people. I remember one time Tanner was like, "Gosh, if I could get the CEO's badge for a day, at, you don't want to say
Pick
who.
a name, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could take over the world,
Yeah.
or fix the world. But there's not everybody has. Like I said a minute ago, it's hard to teach somebody that knows everything. And
it
they all
is
feel that
one
way.
thing that I'll tell you that we have struggled with a little bit internally because we have great tenure with our employees, which I love. I love. But the negative side of that is getting people to think differently.
Change is hard.
Change is hard for people that have been there so long, and I'm talking about myself too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, take yourself out and think about this differently. And so, but the
We
entire
do this
team's
cool
awesome.
thing, like on Saturday nights, we'll sit out, me and Tanner, and we're like, okay, if you were to walk from the outside in and look at our company, where are we screwing it up?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where would you attack this company? Where would you find a hole in the boat? And to sit here and destroy ourselves,
We do it over and over.
Absolutely.
and then kind of fix the.
It's the only way to get
Measure.
an objective opinion of yourself.
It is.
Is to just try to beat the hell out of yourself. you know?
Because new people come in and go, "Why are you doing
Why are you
this?
doing that?"
Why are
Yeah,
you doing
exactly.
this?"
Right.
And, but it's hard when you're in the middle of it.
Yep.
We, Wes, the CTO from MX,
Yep.
he spoke at AFT.
Yep.
And one of the things he said is with their IT team is if you have to do something twice, figure out a way to automate it. And so I came back on Monday and I talked to senior management and I'm like, okay, twice may be a lot, but think about this company wide. So
Right.
think about if we're getting a support call 5 times.
Bingo.
What is it?
Fix
Is that an education issue?
Yeah.
Is that something we need to code differently? I mean, just thinking differently. But it's hard when you've been there and in the middle of the same stuff over and over and over again.
Well, there's a ton of, the narrative, y'all, I'm sure, run into this till you're ready to pull your hair out. This modern core and new everything, right? And it's, to me, if you watch all the math and the failed conversions and all the pain, it's a lack of experience.
It is.
Maybe it's the most wonderful modern technology built by people who obviously weren't from banking, right? And I've always watched you guys for like 65 years.
60
right?
years.
Yeah, okay, and y'all have really started leaning into that in your marketing. I love it because the technology is rarely the thing that's really the showstopper. It's actually
It's
the
the service.
experience.
Yep, that's right.
And I've always seen that how many conversations have we had where they're like, we were doing that 30 frickin' years ago, we just called it a different name.
Yeah.
The,
right?
the ABA principles.
Absolutely.
We didn't make one change.
No, and we
On
have
that.
done all of those.
It's awesome.
All of those things.
I'll tell you a term, you just want to punch somebody every time you hear the word legacy vendor. And it's like, I'll guarantee you, if you found somebody 20 years ago that worked at that place, would be like, it's nothing like that today.
Exactly.
Does your company stand around and do nothing? Of course not.
No.
Right? And to your point, the complexity and the use of that experience, and your point, making changes as we go every day, re-examining ourselves, that's what makes this industry click.
Well,
And for
it's a
every,
great,
let me finish this
go
point.
ahead.
Everybody that thinks this is an industry full of dumbass legacy people. That
How come they
brought-
can't beat us then?
Yeah, well, we brought you the ATM, we brought you,
Cards.
debit cards, we brought you everything you use today to turn out and
Move
act like
money.
you're a modern something or other using what? The
All
same
the
shit we
rails
brought to
we
you.
built.
Yep.
So that's kind of the way I feel about the young people and the boomer thing. And it's like, yeah, we brought you cell phones. The one that you think we're stupid on, we built them.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is I get all these calls from journalists and everything, right? As you imagine, care to comment on the modern cores taking down the legacy cores? And I'm like, as soon as they steal a bank from Tanna and Sarah, I'd be happy to comment, but they haven't,
Yeah.
right? But you see them going the other way quite a bit. Yeah.
It's interesting. I want to go back to something you said about implementation, though. That's where we see a lot of the new vendors fail.
Yes.
Is that Implementation is hard. Coming up with a new product and integrating that product may not be that hard, but when you start having to implement it and you start having to take those customer calls, that's where we always talk about, if we're going to buy a company and it tanks our support because they didn't know how to implement or things like that, it's not worth it to any of us.
But the other thing that we do, we've done several acquisitions over the years, but the thing that I feel like we do differently is we take the time to integrate them into our culture, integrate them into our product. And so, you don't have 14 logins just because we own all those companies. And so, but that's a differentiator. That's not easy sometimes either, but you do an acquisition of an organization and don't put them into your culture, all of a sudden you've got major issues.
Well, I think that's part of some of what y'all talked about on the partnership side. I've watched that march that you guys do for a long time. Y'all don't really have an end zone in mind. You're going to start with a partner and give everybody a chance, and the more success, if it becomes super successful and integrated and systemic, it would be obvious that you would want to buy them.
Yep.
And you think about like Brian Adler, and it wasn't like there was some big moment in time where you had some big thing to do. They had gone on the march with you guys, and so they were already. I mean, who cares what the ownership is?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I like that a lot.
That's
And that being good on partners allows you to always have good things in places that you may not have had before, and not have to react to the market where it's like a knee jerk. Oh, we got to go buy something because we weren't doing that.
First thing people sell against us is our size,
Mhm.
and you
Not anymore.
Not
You're top 5 now.
Yeah, yeah.
Amen.
But I always say I'm not going to apologize for my size because we do the things we do because of our size. And do we want to grow? Of course, and we are. But the others couldn't do what we're doing if they wanted to.
I think one thing we see on the new sales side a lot too is we never convert a bank and the bank goes into it saying, yes, a conversion. But I've lost count of the number of times right after a conversion that the bank says, hey, I know it's been like 2 weeks, use this as a reference. And I think that speaks a lot to the people, which is something both of you guys put on.
We used to do conversions at Malzahn. I remember I had a sales one time, took her on site with me, and the bank's like, everybody, all your competitors told us it'll be no big deal. And she looks at me and she goes, all of your customers are going to call screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And the banker's like, what?
But you set
and
the
he
expectation.
stopped on the dime and he's like, I'm going to go with you guys. Like, it sounds like you've been through this and you know what to expect,
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody didn't call screaming.
Right.
But it's the right expectation.
Yeah.
You and I talked before about ADS and First City back in those days and doing core conversions. I don't remember son of a bitch ever calling us up saying, hey, we'd like to be a reference for you.
Yeah, exactly.
No way.
Not one of the conversions was perfect, but then it goes back to the point is who's gonna you want the partner that's going to then help you through things when it's not everything's not rainbows and sunshine.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. I've never seen one that I would even call good. Damn sure not referenceable. That's a pretty big statement.
I think what's pretty cool too is when I came to your convention, I've been to some of the big conventions, and the executive staff is like celebrity status, and like bodyguards wrapped around them, right? Not y'all though. I mean, you come in, you're in the middle of it, and to me that speaks a lot of volume. That you're like, hey, tell me what's going on in your world. You don't see that very often, and that's incredible. I love that about y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
When getting community banking, I think would be my last point, that I don't know, there's something weird, and I know that we all feel this way, a little frustration that we all see and understand and get things that our banker pals don't maybe see and get all the time, right? And you can get a little, wrapped around the axle on those things.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I swum a mile out here to save your ass, and you're fighting me.
That's it. But have y'all noticed how much the narrative from people that are newcomers and haven't, I mean, like literally everybody here has grown up in banking. I mean, like there's like 1,000 years around this table, right? And like probably 12 generations. Okay. And so, I mean, we have a lot of respect for these people because they're our people. I mean, our communities are families, literally. And it really just grinds my gears, the new people showing up and the narrative of banks are stupid and we're going to tell you. I don't like it when people are trying to tell them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just really irks me, and I really like that with you guys. Of if we're having behind the scenes conversations. It's about how are you guys using or explaining this narrative? What are you guys finding as a good analogy or a metaphor?
It's
Like, we're talking
consultative.
about this,
It's
right?
consultative.
It's about how to get them to understand and how to see things that are going on and how to show them what their peers are doing. Not walk in there and beat them over the head and tell them they're stupid. It's just
Yeah.
rude.
You know,
That's not how we've all ever operated.
It goes back to really quickly. We started this off before. It's all about relationships.
It is. That's what
That's
it's
where it's at, and I think that's what sets you guys apart, and it's being
It is.
seen so well. Is that community banking's relationships with the community?
Trust.
You guys have got
Yep.
the relationship with the community banks.
I think during COVID, that was one of our biggest concerns when everything shut down is, can you build a relationship over a screen?
Right.
and you know, we did great, but we're a relationship sales organization.
Yeah.
That's how we sell, that's how we support, and so that was a big concern.
It was.
Yeah, it's funny, us, when we go the same way, whether it's Fed, Fizz, Bankers Helping Bankers, IBAT, we're small enough to be nimble, big enough to have resources,
Yep.
but also not big enough for even if we wanted to be. We're not trying to hide leadership from the customer base.
No.
Right.
Our whole team knows the biggest thing from me is every customer, every friend that we have has our CEO's cell phone number.
Yep.
And if you get
Same.
him blown up, I'm going to kill you. I'm gonna have to fire myself if you kill our CEO, right? It keeps everybody honorable in everything that they're doing, and it also lets the team let you know early if things are going a little sideways. And
Yep.
I mean, when you get that call of, hey, I think, we probably got about 6 weeks, but this could bubble up, you can hop in and save the day. That's what we'll do.
I'll tell you what, when you mentioned earlier about, us having all these relationships and stuff, it's on the bank side as well. And to have, Bankers Helping Banker doesn't work without like your premier sponsorship. That's
Exactly.
This is the thing that I don't think everybody gets is there's no way you see how many people we're able to help.
Oh, yeah.
At no cost.
It's almost like United Way or something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're over here just working like madmen, helping these people interface with other products or do other things that have nothing to do with you, but you're paying for it. And it's this moment in time where I think a lot of people have seen now that, hey, we're kind of, time's not on our side any longer. I don't mean old age. I mean
We all have
number
to
of
get on the
banks,
same
right?
team.
Yeah.
And we blow this, we'll forever be the people that had a chance and didn't do it. And y'all stepping up on that, and others,
And we see the value.
I mean, we all have to do that right now, is
Yeah.
realize that this is time to put your swords down. Let's try to work together to save these folks. And you do what you do really, really good, and you recognizing what we do really good is, man, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we work our feathers off on this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you do all day long,
Oh, I
right?
know. Every day.
But at the end of the day, too, we all have the same vision about saving community banks.
That's it.
We all do. We're all the same mission.
I
Talked
think
to
we're
a guy.
doing a good job.
I talked to a guy the other day. He was in Estonia in '91, and when they're doing the whole Russian breakup, and these countries trying to form their banking system, and he's like, when you got 4 banks left, you won't believe how bad that is on the consumer and how unbelievably disserviced that they were. And he said, you want to know what America will look like when we lose community banking? I've seen it. And
Yeah.
that was a really good, it just really hit me. When I was talking through that, it's like, we don't get this one back. If you can't hang on to it, you damn sure can't build it
Yep.
back.
Yeah.
No.
Well, should we go break some bread?
Let's do it. You want to go to Gristmill?
I think so.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we get Gristmill, and then if Green Hall's open, we get a beer, or at least get a picture out front.
Yeah. Hopefully it's open. If there's other stuff around there too, like if you want to go see something.
Oh, like shopping?
Yes. Exactly.
That's what you were thinking,
There's
right?
a little
We'll
shout
hold
there.
your purse. We've all been married long enough. We know how to do it.
I'm starving. I'm getting the chicken fried steak just for sure.